Hey, hey, hey! In the last video, I kind of noticed that something wasn't quite right with the guns of the enemy battleships I was facing. They were significantly longer than what I had, or their barrel size were significantly longer. And I was controlling the French Empire. And if we go into the battleship of a British ship, and we take a look at, for example, their 12 inches, if you look at the top of the tooltip of this gun, you can tell it's a 54, or it's a 12-inch L54. Now, that means that the barrel length is 54 times the diameter of the rounds it shoots. But if you go to the okay, let me just go to a different design so I'm not spoiling anything. If you go to the battlecruiser and you check the French gun, notice that it's a 12-inch L64. So what that means is that the French guns at Mark III, they are longer than the British Mark III. And the same applies for the 11-inch. It's significantly longer. And the 13-inch. While the 9 and the 10 inches, they are roughly around 50, which is considered normal. Now, what that means is that if you build a battleship with the French Empire, and I think after going through all the nations, I think this applies to the Americans and the Italians as well. They have guns that when you increase their barrel length, you can achieve L76. And this is pretty crazy. I don't have to tell you just how freaking long these barrels are. And that has a significant impact on your shell velocity and your accuracy while fighting, what should we say, more ill-fortunate other designs of the era. So I'm going to change up the way I'm presenting these videos. The design phase of making ships, quite frankly, it takes too long. And the battles take very long. So instead, I'm going to record and do a voiceover as I'm going over an already existing design that I have done and point out stuff that I've done here, instead of trying to min-max optimize directly. And I think that's going to cut down on the time taken. And then I'm going to do a voiceover of a played out battle. So then I don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what to say and try to come up with interesting topics. If I can't do that during the battle when there's nothing significant going on, I'll just speed it up. So, what can we achieve in this design? Essentially, unlike my previous videos, I don't want this to be about speed. Battleships of this era, when I play against the AI, they tend to be around like 20 to 24 knots. So I wanted to have parity with the best that the AI can have here. I don't want this to be about abusing the effect on targeting when you're too fast for them to keep up. So I'm going to stay within the range of the enemy ships. And instead, this is all going to be about these long-barreled guns. And I have 10 barrels here. That's pretty significant. Now, for the French, it is possible to do this with the 13-inch as well. But the fire rate is just become so horrendous, I don't find it particularly useful, to be honest. Even if it is a bit easier to punch through enemy armor, I really don't like this. Now, I have made some min-maxing that might not be, completely possible in the campaign. Like I ditched the anti-torp design, but it's possible to adjust there. Like you don't really need 10 guns. I think 8 is enough. And the secondary armament is pretty light. It's only 6 5-inch guns. Or we have 6 barrels per side. You can probably get 2 inches in here, and it'll be fine to deal with destroyers. But with that said, I'm going to go over to the already pre-recorded battle, and I'll do a voiceover where I'm going to point out stuff. So I'll see you then. So I have to say, I kind of like this design. I don't know about the firing arcs this thing might have, but it looks neat when they're back to back like that. The shots aren't penetrating quite as well as they might have done with the 13-inch, but they're doing the fire rate and the accuracy there. It's really awesome. You can see these fires, they're doing their magic. Funny about to see the stats of these ships, and while the fore and aft armor isn't much to write home about, all in all, this is a fairly well balanced ship for the AI, all things considered. It seems like the Streitbar is taking its final rest at sea, and we move on to the next ship. These 10 inches aren't much of a threat to me, but given the incoming volume of fire, I still should adopt a defensive angle here. And the design of my ship allows me to keep 8 or even all 10 of my guns on target, even at these sort of defensive angles. Here I decide that I don't want to trail them after me, and instead I go for a line against line gun exchange. It's not a smart thing to do. And even if I technically can sink the ships a bit faster, it's not something I should do. But I'm doing it just to show how the design works in this situation as well. In real life, sinking a battleship, or any naval ship actually, with just pure guns is actually quite hard. It wasn't uncommon, even up until the end of the war, that it could take hours just shooting a hull, and it just wouldn't sink. Like, the ship would be completely inoperable, but actually sinking it, that was pretty hard actually with just the guns. And finally, Luitpold is going down, and the wounded Erlaut, or at least that's how I hope it's pronounced, is sinking. And it turns out I'm fairly satisfied with this design. I'm abusing something in the game that obviously is kind of good for those who have access to bigger guns than other nations. But that's just how I roll. I would love some feedback on how you find the new format. Does it save you time? Is that valuable for you? Leave a comment down below.